just a little bit. That's my guess. Both sides probably regret it just a little bit. But Rizzo's going to get a shot at a World Series title this year. And he got the contract that he's comfortable with. So my question is, right now, I saw somebody walking by, Mount Rushmore Cubs. What does that mean to you if I say, who's the Mount Rushmore of Cubs? What's your criteria? And is Rizzo on the Mount Rushmore of Chicago Cubs? I'll simplify it. Chicago Cubs players, because I could easily argue that Harry Carey should be one of the four heads on a Mount Rushmore of Chicago Cubs if it was anybody associated with the Cubs. If you want to just go players and former players, who are the four heads on the Mount Rushmore?
For me, I love how we're diagonally across the street from Obvious Shirts, because he put out a poll last night basically asking this exact question.
Well, we know Ernie Banks is one.
Yeah.
So there's 3 spots left.
Well, I bring that up because I replied to the tweet and was just like, if you look at Baseball Reference, no. But if you go by impact on the organization, I think you can make the argument depending on how you view things. All right. I personally would have him on the outside looking in because I think Sammy Sosa belongs on it. And I can't take Ryan Sandberg off. Can't take Ernie Banks off.
I think Banks and Sandberg are guaranteed spots.
And then Ron Santo.
Sano, Billy Williams, Fergie Jenkins. I think you could easily make the argument that only Hall of Famers should be on the Mount Rushmore of Chicago Cubs. But I hear you about Sammy. I hear you about.
I have Sammy there because it's like you can't. It's like the same thing I said about Rizzo. You can't talk about the Chicago Cubs without Sammy Sosa either. And he's had a better career than Anthony Rizzo. It's just the fact of the matter. I don't care what anyone says about steroids and all that. You still got to be able to hit a curveball to hit it out of the park. I legitimately don't care. All right, he has more home runs than anyone else in the organization's history
by a lot.
And if you do want to talk about impact, you look at the Cubs attendance from 1998 forward after the home run race. All right, Sammy Sosa. I'm not going to repeat everything I've said on this podcast over 2.5 years about my feelings about Sammy Sosa and how he deserves to be welcomed back and all that. All that's aside when it comes to this conversation. But at the same time, you can't not include him in terms of the Mount Rushmore, even if you talk about impact. And then Ryan Sandberg and Ron Santo and Ernie Banks, they all made massive impact on this organization. I guess
if you wanted to take one from each era, now you start to make a bigger argument for Rizzo, right?
Yeah.
Because of playing for 10 years, being on the championship team, is he the most likely out of that group? I think if you ask the question, who's the Mount Rushmore of the 2016 Cubs or the golden era, Rizzo's in there without question. Now the other three are still
Rizzo,
three are still
Lester,
really hard.
Bryant are 3. I don't know who I give my 4th.
Bryant has to be 1.
Yeah.
Rizzo would have to be 1.
Rizzo, Lester, and Bryant have to be.
Yeah. I would put those 3 and
the fourth spot would be hard.
Yeah, the 4th spot.
Dexter Fowler. How about the MVP, Ben Zobrist?
Yeah.
NLCS MVP, Javi Baez.
Jake Arrieta.
Yeah.
Getting back to your original question, Luke, I do think that you can't tell the story about the Chicago Cubs without Sammy Sosa. You can't in any way. You can't twist it. You can't put that era. That was the most important
And nobody's
era.
saying those presidents were perfect either.
What's that?
Nobody's saying the presidents on Mount Rushmore were perfect people either.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. You can't tell any Cub fan sitting in this bar right now. You can't tell any Cub fan, older, younger, who lived through that era. I was only 6 years old. I remember Sammy Sosa. Sammy Sosa got me into baseball. You can't. He's on it. Sorry, you could disagree. He's on it. He had the most impact of any Cub, arguably. Ernie Banks is on there, Mr. Cub. Ron Santo, just because of his impact on and off the field, a guy like Rizzo, a guy who had an unbelievably legendary career in the broadcast booth after becoming a Hall of Famer.
Yep.
I think
and Ryan Sandberg is, Luke has talked a ton about Ryan Sandberg.
I could never put Rizzo over Ryan Sandberg.
I don't think you can.
You can't.
No, I don't think you can either. It's
hard. Winning is a team thing.
If you were to take one of those 4 guys off because the steroid thing was such a stain on baseball, as much as I joke about how much I love them and everything. And it's like a big reason why I even got into baseball to begin with. Like, if you force me to fit Rizzo on there, I would probably have to take Sammy Sosa off, just because of, the fact that Sosa was part of the steroid talk.
Right.
But that's only because you're forcing me to do it. I don't want to do it. It's not something that I purposely would do. But I can't take any of the other three off either.
I could see that take, though.
You know what I mean?
You can't take the other three.
It's a very
If you don't do Sammy Sosa, then it should just be the 4 Hall of Famers.
Yes.
Billy Williams, Santo, Fergie, Sandberg. Banks.
And
5 heads.
And Anthony Rizzo is going to be a Chicago Cubs Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
The only thing more special than the day that we had today is the day that him and Bryant get their statue together on Gallagher Way, which is coming.
Yeah.
And that is the way to do it. For those two. Just put them
argument.
together.
Yeah.
Another argument you can make is just the fact that he was the face of the franchise for when they won the World Series to break a 108-year curse. And in some ways, you can argue that that's bigger than any of the other guys that we've talked about.
Chris Bryant won an MVP.
That's what I was going to say. He was the face. He was the captain of the team, but Bryant was the MVP that year.
Yeah, I think a lot of people forget how freaking good Chris Bryant was, man.
I mean, he's fallen off the face of the earth, but don't forget, he was Rookie of the Year and MVP.
He was unbelievable.
All the Hall of Famers, Sammy Sosa, they all had the longevity. There's a reason that Ernie Banks, Billy Williams, Fergie Jenkins, and Ryan Sandberg and all those guys are in the Hall of Fame. Not only did they make a massive impact to fans and the city and all that on the field and off the field, but they did it for years. Rizzo, 10 great years with the Cubs. He's not even on the Cubs now. Bryant, I love Chris Bryant, but it was only for 5 years, 6 years if you want to count half of 2021. That's the reason that I've came to the acceptance that when we talk about guys that are going to get the statue out there next, if Rizzo is on a statue outside Wrigley Field one day, it's going to be with Bryant, Javi Baez, and whoever else from a picture from the World Series. It's not going to be one particular one, because the only statues that are outside Wrigley Field are guys who played for the Cubs for a really long time and are Hall of Famers.
And Harry Carey.
Harry Carey, who is a Hall of Fame broadcaster.
That's right.
What about making room for Christian Bethancourt?
What about Esteban Quiroz?
You might have to carve out a
It's a smaller statue, but it's still a statue. Fergie was in the Yankees dugout waiting to greet Anthony Rizzo. I don't know if he ever got a chance, but he was waiting for quite a while Rizzo was doing his interviews and talking to the kids and all the things he needed to get done.
That's awesome.
But Fergie was waiting there. So I thought it was pretty cool to see a Cubs Hall of Famer know what Rizzo means to the fan base, to the organization, even to former players who haven't played in a long time. He still wanted to give his, tip of the cap to Rizzo coming back. So I thought that was pretty cool to see.
Yeah.
What did you think of Wicks today, by the way?
I mean, he had that
Jordan
one
Wicks.
bat.
Were you good with that? I mean, you said the way he worked out of that first was pretty good.
Yeah. This thing about Jordan Wicks, it's kind of like how I view Pete Crow-Armstrong. I think I would have higher expectations if he hadn't got hurt twice. We coming into the year, you were optimistic, or you were hopeful that maybe he could solidify himself as somewhere between a 3 and a 5 in your starting rotation. And I still think that it's possible. It's just unfortunately he's been hurt twice this year. So, and I can't blame a guy for injuries. It is what it is. And so for me, it's all about how do you do the rest of the season? And then I can answer your question about how do I feel about Jordan Wicks. As of just the start in general, to be able to only give up 3 runs to this Yankees lineup, considering how the early innings went for him, showed a lot of guts. But it was a lot of what we saw back in April before he got hurt. He would be okay, but he could never go deep in the games. And it was largely because he would always have 1 or 2 innings where he throws 30 pitches and his pitch counts gets up. and he's just not able to eat any innings for you. So if that continues the rest of September, that's kind of going to be my thing for him going into 2025 is finding a way to get through innings quicker and more efficiently, and we'll see. So, yeah, I mean, I'm still optimistic about the guy, though. I think he shows a lot of guts out there. So
they have missed him. Hey, guys, some beers can say they're brewed for baseball, but only Blue Moon is brewed by baseball. Beer and baseball just go together, and no beer goes better than the one that was born in a ballpark. Blue Moon, created at Coors Field in Denver. It's the natural choice all season long. Summertime shy. It was perfect weather in the bleachers today. Absolutely perfect. Give me a Blue Moon afterwards to cool off. Nothing beats watching baseball or lounging by the pool or watching the Bears opener like an ice-cold Blue Moon. Blue Moon was brewed by baseball to give you a dose of nostalgia and get you excited for the new season. A beer this good only comes around once in a Blue Moon, but you can enjoy it all year long. Bring the ballpark to you with Blue Moon Belgian-style wheat ale. It's one of a kind every time. Get Blue Moon delivered by visiting get.bluemoonbeer.com/CHGO to see your delivery options. That's get.bluemoonbeer.com/CHGO. Blue Moon, made brighter. Celebrate responsibly. Blue Moon Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. Hey, we do want to mention, good time to sign up to be a diehard, because Jared and Ryan, when they're writing and even into the off season, you're going to be wanting to catch all their articles, Ryan's newsletter, and of course, discounts to things like today's takeover. You would have had 20% off all of your ticket and your entry and all the stuff to Wrigley Field. We have the Bears tailgate starting this Sunday, and it's 20% off those tailgates, 20% off all the merch that we have, which is now at shop.allcitynetwork.com.
Yes.
Is that correct?
I believe so. Credit to you.
Credit to me for my simple mind for remembering that. Like an elephant over here. I remember everything. Anyways, good time to sign up to be a diehard. Always, you get the diehard card, which if you came in here right now, you wouldn't even need an ID. You just throw down the diehard card, and the respect is right there.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind.
Pocket.
All right. What's
Someone just gave us a napkin. I don't know what it is.
It's hard to make out some of it.
1910 Cubs. Tinker Evers chance.
We do have a super chat.
Ed Rulebach. Is it this? This is your
he's-
suggestion
maybe-
for the Mount
I
Rushmore?
think is he making this suggestion for the
Look at the ERAs on him. Who's the last guy? I couldn't read the last name.
Ed Rulebach is the bottom.
Fine.
Ed Rulebach
Who'd
is
you
the
put-
bottom
Who's
one.
the last guy?
Ed Rulebach is the bottom one. But you want us to look up their ERAs and put them on Mount Rushmore?
These guys' ERAs under one.
Okay.
So are you suggesting from our Mount Rushmore that you would like them on Mount Rushmore? So you want a Mount Rushmore for each era of Cubs baseball. That's right. It's difficult.
You're not wrong.
There's
You're
only
not
4
wrong, man.
heads.
You're not wrong.
I would suggest if you're only taking 4 names, as much as I love what Rizzo did, he wouldn't be on my Mount Rushmore. It would be 4 Hall of Famers. Would have to be Hall of Famers. But you could easily argue you only get 1 from each era, and then Rizzo might be the guy from 2016.
Yeah.
And that would be a fair way too.
I think he's certainly going to you could certainly make the argument that he's somewhere in the top 10 of Cubs all time.
Yeah, if you're doing a top 10, if you're doing a Mount Rushmore with 10 heads,
Yeah.
and they're all players, Rizzo's on the list.
Or just the top
because of what
10
they did.
in general. I
That's
mean,
too easy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Rizzo's
But
definitely on
that's
there.
not, Mount Rushmore has 4 heads. We can't change that. Well, they're adding Crazy
it
Horse.
comes-
If you want to add a 5th, I still don't know if
I
Rizzo's
think
on
it comes down to
Might
like
just be Hall of Famers then too.
I think it truly comes down to like, instead of looking at baseball reference, just comes down to true impact, what they meant to the organization, what they did for the fan base, stuff like that,
How
And
they
even when you do that, it's like you can't put him in there because I put Sammy Sosa over him,
And it also counts for how they still talk about the organization after they left. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm sure, like Luke said, I'm sure there's a little bit of regret on both sides, conversations, whatever it may be, but you still hear Anthony Rizzo talk so highly about Wrigley Field. You heard him on the way in. Oh, looked out at the lake, saw the waves were choppy, knew the wind was blowing in. He still loves this field. He still loves this town.
Here's a
I think
question.
that counts for something too, because there's some guys that come in and they're just, they're here and they enjoy it. They're like, oh, I like Wrigley Field. I like playing for the Cubs. But they're not like, yeah, I love this team. I could see myself living in Chicago post-career. I want to finish as a Yankee, but I want to come back here potentially. There's few guys that qualify and fit in all of those buckets. Rizzo does.
Here's a question for you. Would you be interested in him coming back for like a retirement tour, like as a bench guy? Not like he's your everyday first baseman, which they have first base pretty much solved, in my opinion. I think we all agree with that. But he's 35 years old. You think?
Am I fine with him coming back? I just think it's easier to find a young guy that could fill that spot and play multiple positions. But I don't hate it. At the same time, it's time to move on. Like you said, it's been 10 years. I think the reunions are great.
Even if it was just like a couple million.
I think if he was a righty, it would make more sense because then you do the platoon.
Sure, but I prefer to eliminate the last year or two of him as a Cub and just remember him as the golden era.
Yeah, well, that's fair.
Coming up with the stance where he kind of humps the plate a little bit,
Yeah,
he's got his dog with him. He's twerking on beer money. Those things are what I remember about Rizzo.
Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't say no.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say no.
My heart says that.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say no.
The Cubs fan in you and a lot of people would love to see that, but
yeah,
I think strategically, I guess if the Cubs found themselves in an injury situation, baseball's fickle, right? It changes so often. Maybe there's a situation for it, but in the way they are constructed right now, they have a lot of lefties in their lineup. It wouldn't really make a ton of sense.
Fair.
I'd rather have Schwarber as a backup DH.
Well, I think we all would. I absolutely would rather have Schwarber. Okay,
that doesn't
but that's
mean
not going to happen.
Doesn't take anything away from
I
Rizzo.
believe Rizzo is going to be a free agent at the end of the year, so it's just kind of one of those things where it's like, he's 35. Depending on what happens in the postseason with the Yankees, I don't know if the Yankees want to bring him back. It's not like he's been great the last 2 years. He's been hurt. Can he play first base every single day moving forward? I'm just talking about as a guy off the bench to be like a power bat, kind of like Patrick Wisdom, okay?
But would you rather have him on the – okay, let's assume it's not Wisdom. Would you rather have him on the team than Owen Casey or Canario or somebody else that's younger that might get a couple extra bats but still have the potential to turn into something?
No.
That's it's just a question of where are you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, where are you? Do you need the leadership guy? I don't know.
Right. I don't think anybody knows.
I don't know that answer.
That's the confusing part, right? It's like, well, we've decided, I think, this year that it's been developmental, right? I think the way everything has gone the last couple of months clearly shifts you in the developmental phase. But, yeah, are you ready to go out and do you have just extra cash to spend around on a free agent like that? Would that make a lot of sense? Because right now you need stars.
Yeah,
Anthony Rizzo is not a superstar.
No.
He was a very good player.
Admittedly, if it were to happen in December of this offseason and it was the first move that happened for the Cubs, it would definitely feel like one of those we're trying to get people to come to the ballpark time.
100% it would. And by the way, I don't want it to end like it did for Jake Arrieta.
That's fair too.
Arrieta came back and was like, well, what if if he's your sixth starter, he comes back. Just remember when they were great in a Cubs uniform.
They were also in a complete different situation too, though.
Yeah.
That team, when they signed Jake Arrieta, that was literally, a month and a half after they traded Yu Darvish for a bunch of teenagers. We knew that team was going to be blowing itself up at some point. I'm just saying, as a bench player, to come off the bench and be a left-handed power bat for a team that if you play your cards right, you do everything you're supposed to do to put this team in position to win, he could potentially be a guy that's part of that helps put this team in the playoffs next year. Again, a lot of things would have to change. You guys make good points. Bush is a left-handed hitter. But there is absolutely no way that this team should be going into 2025 with the roster exactly the way that it is. There's no way. And if it is, I'm going to be counting down the days from opening day to the very end because we're just going to be doing the same thing over and over again. It's going to be insanity, and I'm going to need a lot of blue moon to get through it.
I was never on board with people that said bring D Rose back.
Yeah.
I want to remember Derrick Rose pre-knee injuries. I don't want to see Derrick Rose, the role player in a Bulls uniform. I want to remember him for the greatness he was when he was a rookie and at his prime. Same thing goes with Arrieta. Didn't work well. For that matter, look at Kyle. Look at some of the hate Kyle Hendricks gets now.
Yeah.
And I could see Rizzo being the same thing. Like
Yeah.
he's hurt or he strikes out and people are mad. And let him remember it this way.
And that's fair. Again, my point of view is based off as a very limited role. It's not like you're relying on him to go out there and pitch every fifth day like Kyle Hendricks.
Yeah.
It's not like you're relying on him to go out there, and be old Jake Arrieta. Like you just want him to maybe start once or twice a week.
There's also some difference in personalities there too.
True. Yeah.
Leave it
absolutely, especially with Arrieta compared to Rizzo.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that.
One hit for the Cubs against the New York Yankees. One hit.
It is crazy how they're
The bar
one
is
side of the
screaming
graph
one
and then the
goddamn
other
hit.
side of the graph. It's really crazy.
Ricky came all the way from Houston. He was here before the show started. He'll be here when the show ends, and he'll be at the
He
game
came
this
all the
weekend.
way from Houston to come see the Cubs get one
He was in the
hit.
live YouTube chat the other day. Said, "I think I'm going to be there."
Yeah, and he's here.
Ricky, are you a diehard yet? Oh, he's a diehard
He's
too.
diehard. Love it.
Somebody
That's
get him a
why.
drink. Cody, you've got money.
What'd you say?
I said, somebody get him a drink. Cody, you've got money. Get him a drink.
Oh, I got money. Yeah, I do
I'll
have
go
money.
up there in
I
a
guess.
second.
Yeah. Shout out to the dogs I've been
Diehard
watching.
card. Look at. Do you
Oh,
see
yeah.
do you see how the sunlight catches that?
There it is.
That's
Love
almost
to see
like
that.
when Batman holds up the sign,
It's like the Batman
Batman
symbol.
logo on the sign, the diehard card. There it is.
You put up the diehard card. It's like the Batman signal.
Diehard card. I've seen two of them now.
Oh yeah, brother.
Beautiful. Nothing says I'm distinguished like the diehard card from
Yeah.
CHGO.
Absolutely. You can walk into any bar. It'll get you any drink you want.
It's in the words of Anthony Rizzo. You hold that up, respect me. Respect me. You hold up that card. Thanks for. We good?
I guess. Are
We
we
good?
good? We didn't get Jared.
Well, Jared's
Yeah,
busy.
thanks,
He's got
everybody.
his clubhouses to work today.
Yeah, thanks to everybody for coming out. This was awesome. It's
Yeah.
really
Yeah,
great to
thanks
see
everybody
everybody.
at Almost
man.
Home. Thanks to all the staff at Almost Home, the diehards that showed up, everybody that went to the takeover. Hopefully you'll all come to the tailgate on Sunday.
Bears.
Titans
Bears.
plus 4.5. Sorry.
You're out of
Cody's
your
betting
mind.
against the Bears. I might too. Thanks for checking out the CHGO Cubs podcast. We appreciate it. Corey and Brendan will have a recap of this series coming up on Sunday after the game. And we'll be back on Monday for the Cubs and Dodgers when it might as well all be over. Thanks for checking out the podcast. Until next time, fly the W.
We all silly like the mayor.